Okay, so this part is on love and relationships. So,
That I got a lot to tell you.
okay. All right. All right. So the first question was, when did you first fall in love?
When my husband to be came to camp to see his folks, and I happened to be going down the aisle with two guys to see a Japanese play. And these two men, one was up across the street from me, Sam Oda. He and another guy, I cannot remember him, he was from Mountain View. And he and Sam asked me to go with them to interpret Japanese play to them because they couldn't speak Japanese. So I said, okay, I'll go with. And they said they'll give me a peach pie because they're the driver for the camp, for our mess hall. And because they do favors for these cooks, they will, do whatever they want. So they needed. They said, "I'll get you a peach pie." Well, for peach pie, I would go with these guys. And as I was going down the aisle, there's a lot of benches. I happened to look back. I was almost at the seat, way to the front, and I looked back and I saw a face that just hit me. So I said, I have to go back. So the boy said, okay, I'll save you a seat here. So I went back, and as I'm walking, I thought, how can I introduce myself? Because in 1940s, you don't do those things. You have to be introduced by a friend or your brother or whoever. And I had no one to be introduced. No one that would introduce me to this guy who was in a uniform. So as I was thinking and walking slowly, I heard little Oli. She was probably like about 10 years old. She is a sister to my best friend Lillian and Kay and all those Tokuda families. So Oli said, Yuri-chan, this is my brother. And I didn't even know they had a brother because he's the only son, and he was in the service before the war, so he was never in Santa Anita or in Heart Mountain. So I thought how fortunate I was. I was so lucky that Oli was there. If she weren't there, probably there would have been the end of our romance. So I introduced, so they said, this is Yuri-chan, this is Tadashi-san, and this and that. And so then I said I had to go back to the front because the guys are waiting for me. So I went back, and I don't even know what I watched. But it was, just a Japanese play. And I don't even know if I got the peach pie. I better have, because they promised me. But I was just floating in the air. So that was evening. So next day, I thought surely he will come in looking for me. But Tadashi-san just didn't even come to see me. So I thought, well, I would just, if the Mohammed doesn't come to the mountain will come to Mohammed. So that's what I did. I went to my sister Lillian's barrack, and I went in, and I knocked on the door, and Ted was, he opened the door, and he said, oh, come on in. Then his mother was with her cronies, old, probably they were not old, but they felt like old. They were sitting around the potbelly stove, probably just gossiping. And Ted had olive-colored sleeveless vest. I guess it's the Army, a GI issue. So Ted's mother said, Tadashi, you're hadaka, that means you're naked. He really wasn't. He had this Army GI pants and also this olive green vest. So Ted just ignored her completely. And so So we talked and we laughed, and then next day he came to see me. And it's between my job at the mess hall, because I was like a waitress, clean up the table after the children, and fill up the sugar bowl and salt and pepper. So that's what that was my job. But in between, I had a free time, of course. So he came to see me. And it's a lot of fun. We just kept on laughing. And I would love to touch him, but of course, you don't do those things. In those days, we were just so proper. So I thought I would do the thumb wrestling. Then that way I could touch him. So I said, how about thumb wrestling? So of course he was willing, and we played, and you try to catch each other's thumb down. So we just had a good time. And so that was the third day from him. Then the following day, what did we do? Oh, he had to go. He said, I have to go to a dance tonight, or some kind of meeting tonight, because some of the guy asked me. And so I said, okay. Then he said, no, I don't want to go. So, but anyway, so I said, okay, you just go ahead and go, and I'll just go home. Oh, that's right. It was already evening. And I went to see him. And luckily, he was outside smoking. But I saw this little red light. So he said, is that you, Yuri? So I said, yeah. So I had a pea coat, that's it. He just had the army shirt and a vest. And it was quite cold, but it was already in October, latter part of October. Just before Thanksgiving. No, just before Halloween. So he said, oh, it's cold. So I always said I was 18 going on 12, but I opened my pea coat and I said, here, come here. And I tried to cover him. Then he said, well, I'll just go get the coat. So he went back. And when you look back, that's pretty forward. But I was so in love with him. It really was a love at first sight. So we walked around the block, and it was really cold, windy. So we walked around the open space. It was, I don't even know what it was, but it was open space, and we just walked around. And we just, funny thing was, we just talked and didn't even kiss each other. Right nowadays, you just jump in bed. So after a while, I said, I better go home. He, of course, took me back to my place. And he said, and my folks were already inside the house. And he said, may I kiss you? And of course we kissed, and we kind of wasted a lot of time because we had a more chance to be kissing. But anyway, so, oh yeah, before that, I was quite worried that I would not get to kiss him, because that night when we walked, we didn't kiss. So I thought if next day he was leaving for Arkansas for his army camp. So I thought if my family is more of a hugging and kissing kind of family. So I thought maybe Tokuda family were like that. So then I would just get in line with his sisters and just kiss him then. But it so happened that night before he kissed me, so saved me time. My neighbor had a truck, so he brought the truck over to Tad. And we all piled in and went to the bus station. So, and funny thing was, Tokudas were not hugging kind of people, nor kissing people. So I thought, wow, I lucked out. So he went on a bus to Colorado to meet his buddy. And he told his buddy, he said, I met a girl that I'm going to marry. I'm so in love. And Tessie was snowing, but he said, I kind of danced around on waiting for the bus to take them back to Arkansas. And he said, I was just jumping around. I was so happy. So after he left, we Oh, I know. And he always said, I asked you to wait for me, and I said, I don't know. Because, you know, you never know when I will be seeing him again, and the war was on, and he could have gone overseas. So I couldn't promise him, but because, you know, you never know. Some guy might be coming chasing me. So, but we started to correspond, and it was really nice. We used to write to each other every day, and I would walk with my letter, and I walk all the way to the post office, which was quite a way from, because there's only one post office in the whole camp, and there's 10,000 people living there. So you could imagine. But anyway, I walked over there every day, and of course he wrote to me every day, so I get the letter. And since we had no privacy, I used to read all the letters in the bathroom, and I would start to put all the letters in my pocket of my little cowboy shirt or my jean pants. So it was kind of getting pretty full, but it was just a good time. And so after in May, my brother Nappy and I left camp. He had a job, and I hadn't had a job yet, but I never worked in my life, but they said, my mom said, if it's like housework, you know, you'd be a maid, then you could go. So sure enough, they had a job for me at Winnetka, Illinois. Very high class, upper class neighbors. It was way out now. I think it's north of Chicago. And Nappy had a job as a silk screener, so he had gone to, I think, YMCA in downtown, and he stayed there and worked. So I went to this house. It was a 2-story house, white painted, and Mrs. come out, and her husband was a minister of I think it was a Presbyterian, because I was always a Methodist, you know, in California. So very nice family. The father introduced himself and mother, and then they had a big daughter who was probably like in teens. So there were 3 of them. So the lady of the house, I don't remember their names anymore. So sad. So the lady of the house said, you could help me with the kitchen, set the table, and I'll start the dinner, so you just finish it up and serve, you know. So I said, okay. So she told me to set 3 places. And I thought, 3? I wonder who's not coming down from upstairs, because I thought I get to eat with them. A big surprise. So when the time came, all 3 came down from upstairs and all sat down. Then I realized that I am not eating with them. I'm going to be probably eating in the kitchen. So that started me to cry, because I just felt really, I think humiliated is the word. I just felt like I was like a maid, which I was, but I couldn't reconcile myself. Of course I couldn't eat, I was so choked up. So she thought I was just homesick. So then I called Nappy at the YMCA, and I said, I cannot stay here. So Nappy said, why? So I said, because I have to eat by myself. Nappy goes, look, you're a maid, you're working there, you don't expect to eat with them. I said, but I do. She said, okay, did you have a maid in Japan? So I said, yeah. So she said, did they eat with you? I said, no, of course not. They're a maid. And so Nappy said, well, you are it. But I said, no, I cannot stay here. I have to find a place that would let me eat with somebody. Well, she gave me a day off, and I went down to WRA. They interviewed me again, and they said, I hear you're unhappy. I said, yeah, very unhappy with this family. I would like to have a family that would have maybe children. So they had a Mr. and Mrs. Kahn, Kahn, who had 2 adopted children. I think Punch was probably like 3. Little Judy was probably like 5. So I went back to my lady at the Winnetka and I told her I had to quit. And she said, why? So I said, because I'm not cut out for this kind of job. So I had to look for something. So anyway, I went back to Chicago and worked for this family who was really sweet family. They're a Jewish family, and the 2 children were adopted, and but they almost look like the parents. They're both dark, and so the parents ate in a dining room, very formal, and the children ate in a kitchen in a little. We had a little table, so I get to eat with them, and that was acceptable. So anyway, so Punch and Judy were just really sweet. I have the picture of them someplace in my blog probably. Then Tad got the leave from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where the Army camp was. He moved from Little Rock, Arkansas to Mississippi. So we're still corresponding, and he got the leave to come to Chicago to marry. So we got married in Chicago, and we went back to Mississippi.
Okay.
And we rented a little room, which was horrible. Those guys were making lots of money, and they had a shack we had no bathroom. You had to go outside for that, and no running water, no hot water, of course. So we will boil water to take bath in a little tub. And that was in Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It used to be a 1-horse town, but I went back there 3 years ago. And it's a beautiful city in a big, very nice town. But when we were there, there's nothing. And I found out my husband had a temper. Because in a letter, you don't see the temper. But I should have known, because all the Tokura girls have temper except Oli, the young one. In fact, Shi-chan, the oldest, Aiko was in Japan, but Shi-chan's the oldest in America. She had just fiery temper like Tad. And she said, we used to fight, she said, and he was only boy, but she said, I used to just, get in a fight with him and just try to beat him up. So that's why Tad never was sissy, thanks to Shi-chan. And so he had 5 sisters, and the oldest was in Japan. And so Shi-chan, Kay, Lillian, and Oli, 4 of them.
But how did Dad show his temper to you?
So he would come in to see me. Then next morning he had to get up real early to catch a bus into Mississippi to the camp. So he had to tie his shoes. It's those long lace ones. And he'd be just cussing up and down. And my family is not a cussing type. Nappy didn't cuss. George, of course, never. Amy had I think she was a little more prone to cuss, but not very much. In fact, she said something, and I copied her one time, and she really got mad at me. Yeah, she was really funny because she was smoking. So I picked up the little butt and picked it up to pretend to smoke, and she really chewed me out, and she said, don't you ever start smoking. Don't be like me. So I said, okay. So I never touched cigarette, even when Tad was smoking. So anyway, so he cannot tie his shoes, so he'd be just cussing up and down, and that just put me in really sad mood until he come back nighttime. So one morning I finally said, when you cuss like that, I just feel bad all day. So he said, well, I'm not cussing at you, I'm cussing at him because I can't tie my shoes. So he said, okay, I want it. So he stopped cussing in the morning, although he gets in a fight with the men from 100. They were really tough, but Ted was tougher. And Hawaiian boys used to beat up mainland guys because mainland guy remind them of their boss.
Luna.
They used to call them Luna. And so they, like Susuito, who was just a gentleman, he get beaten up, and so was the George Oye.
Maybe explain a little bit about how pidgin is.
Well, yeah, the Hawaiian boys, of course, spoke pidgin, and they couldn't pronounce girls. He was a gills, and anyway, but he was so tough. He got transferred to another outfit because he hit the guy. This guy was, he said something bad about the cooking, so Ted just reached over and he just slugged him. So he got demoted and we had to go down to a Charlie battery. And when he went to Charlie battery, he saw two guys come into a mess hall, inside to the storeroom. He picks up the egg and starts to walk out. So Ted said, he cussed and said, put those, so-and-so eggs back. So these two guys were supposed to have been very, very tough. They used to call them bulls. One was kind of like a big shot. And he was supposed to be real tough. So was his partner. So they both going out and he said, these darn kotonks. Kotonk is mainland guys because they said it's like a coconut hitting the ground and it's empty sound. So, but of course they would never tell that to Ted. They were scared of him. And way after the war, we had a reunion constantly. Every other year we had a reunion in Hawaii, and every other year was in the mainland.
Sort of explain the 442 and the 100.
We had when they went overseas, they were considered the highest, the most decorated outfit because they had lost so many men when they tried to rescue. Or the first one I think was in Italy. 100 boys went up and just came. If they had sent out 100, probably like 20 came back. And so they were considered just amazing, brave soldiers. And then Ted's outfit, the 522, were big Hulser, big gun. And they too went and rescued Lost Battalion, who were Texas outfit. They were stuck up on Mount Vosque, Vosque. And they were stuck up there, and the Germans got them just surrounded. And they sent up some Howley outfit, and they couldn't rescue. So then they were sent up 442, and they went up, and Ted's outfit, of course, shot the artillery. And they said they were so accurate that it just really helped them. And eventually they rescued them, but they had lost more than half of men or injured. So that was quite a feat. And French people, even to this day, they think of Japanese Nisei soldiers were just wonderful. In fact, Ted and I went there in, I don't have the date, but went to Brie to meet these people who were remnant of the survivor. And one man who had owned the restaurant, the group of us were hungry, so we said, is there any restaurant? His was closed, but he said, for you, we'll open it. And he just hustled together some soup, which was wonderful, and the bread, and fed us. And one of this cook said, the owner said, if it weren't for you people, we would have been dead. So we owe our life to you. And then they introduced us to this man who was only like 63, maybe a little older. He looked like old man, and they said he was the first guy who was liberated by your outfit. And so that was wonderful. It was a very touching thing. And they took us up to Vogue's Mountain, where they dug a little foxhole, and it was still there. It was a lot shallow now, but so all the men tried to get in the foxhole, and I have a picture of that. And they were like kids again. They risked their lives 50 years before that, but now they're a champion. It was quite nice. So that was my husband's.
Oh, maybe also mention that they got the distinguished some kind of award at Tracy.
Yeah, that's way later. Yeah.
All of the 442.
But they were the most decorated outfit. The President Truman, had like a review, and they said they fought that you served our country and bravely when your family was put in camp, and how true that was. Anyway, so by the way, this 522, we had a photographer and a lieutenant named Sus Ito. He got beaten up by boys, but he was a forward observer when they rescued this Texas outfit. But anyway, he was a photographer, so when they were in Germany after the rescuing these Texans. They were in Germany, and they were at Dachau, and he saw all these prisoners in a death camp. So he took out lots of pictures, and many times I see it. And in fact, I have a picture of them here. They were somewhere just skin and bone, and they were, of course, all wear this. Oh gosh, this body just. But this was not taken by Seuss. But anyway, just the bodies all over the place. He was quite famous, actually, and 2 years ago, they had honored him at a Japanese museum in downtown LA, and he was also honored by Harvard. The desk in Harvard, even when he was like 90, before he passed away. So that's about the war stories.
Then then Dad goes off to war, and where do you go?
I'm sorry. Oh, so he goes in May 8th, I think, to they all left on the train, and so all the girls, the wives, we all got together that day, and we packed up. We lived in this house. There's 5 of us, all Nisei girls. So we packed, and I took a bus to Cleveland, and I conceived my son, oldest one, in 43, and he was born in 44. And so my mother took care of me, and look, I worked at this place. They make those cover of a checkbook, and their name was X-Line. Anyway, so in Cleveland, I worked for this X-Line people, and I met quite many girls, and they gave me a baby shower. And one of them gave me a pink puff sleeve little dress. And of course I had a boy. Oh, I know what else. They had a cute little crocheted booty for the baby. And I loved it so much. Someone said, oh, Lili likes that little booty. So someone got it for me, for my shower. And I have never been to shower, so this was a new experience. They had food. In fact, they cooked a nice meal for me, and we were on ration. We had to buy everything on with a coupon. So someone sacrificed a lot to make this nice meal for me. So anyway, we had a nice shower for myself. And my son was born on December 27, 1944. And that morning, Nappy's boss, because we don't have a car, Nappy's boss always came to pick him up. And I was starting to have a little pain, so my brother asked his boss if he would take me to the hospital. So he said, oh yeah. So he was apparently on the way, so I didn't have to get a taxi. So I went to hospital, and it was a pretty long labor, but I had my son. So Red Cross came, and they really treated you nicely. And they were like a visiting nurse, but they came quite often. And the Cleveland newspaper put my son's picture and me. Cleveland Dealer, yeah, that was it. Cleveland Dealer, that's the newspaper. And then eventually the war started to wind up. In fact, Germany was already done. So Ted had high points because he's married and had a son. So single guys, of course, had to stay longer in occupied Germany, but Ted got to come home earlier than others. So by August, no, even before Japan surrendered, the government said we could go back now. Well, luckily, like I said, my mom had a house that was all paid up for, so we asked Mr. and Mrs. Friends to leave, and we got the house back. But there's so many people didn't have a home, so they had to probably double up with so many other family. But in my case, of course, we were doubling up too, because we had Saki, my sister-in-law, my brother, Nappy, Georgie and Ted was still overseas, and Mom, and my stepfather stayed till the very end, so probably he wasn't there. So eventually we all end up in Hollywood, and my Ted got discharged in November, real close to Thanksgiving. And he's amazing. He took a bus. He didn't take taxi like my brother would have done. He just found a way to get home, get to my mother's house. And I was, I knew he was coming home, but I didn't know when, what time or anything. So I was, in my mind, I thought, I'm going to be dressed real nicely and welcome him. Well, I was in the house dressed and probably my hair was a mess, and he knocked on the door. And so I went to answer it, and it was my husband. It was just wonderful. And I thought to myself, of all time, I'm not ready for him. But it was okay. So he stayed with my mom, and my small family that was kind of overflowing. He had the temper, so if Greg cries, our oldest son cries, he would get really angry, and my mother would be crying because Mom raised him up to, he was almost a year old, in November. His birthday is December, so he was 11 months old, and she took care of him for 11 months. So she'd be crying, but she knew Ted had temper. She wouldn't dare tell him anything. So I thought, well, this cannot go, because Mom's crying, Ted's getting mad. So I start to, and he couldn't get a job because he looked like Japanese. Although he had a discharge paper, he had the uniform on and all that. There'll be help wanted. So you go in there, and the minute they see him, oh, it's already taken. So he, at one time, he threatened to hold up the bank. He had a pistol, automatic pistol, and that really scared me because I thought he would, and I thought my mom would die if her son-in-law in jail. So I thought I gotta do something about that. So I looked in the newspaper in a want ad, and I found two ad wanting a woman for nanny job. In those days we didn't call nanny, babysitting or take care of the babies. Other one was just a couple wanting Ted and I. So I called up the first one without children. So when I called the first couple and I told her I have a son, she said, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot, hire you. So then I called the second one, that was the last one, and this woman answered, and I said, I'm answering your ad in the newspaper, and I have my husband and I, and a little, almost a year old, by then it was January, year-old child, boy. She said, oh, come right now, we live in Sherman Oaks, so why don't you just come down right now? You have a car? And we had a car. So we went down there, and their names were Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery. And she was just, we just loved each other from the beginning. So she of course wanted to hire us, and they had no room, so they had the two children, Audie and Robin. So we couldn't stay in the house, but they had a garage, and they had just a basin for laundry. So they convert the garage part into just a living quarter, just one room. And so we brought the baby crib and the bed. Well, I think they gave us a bed, whatever. So we stayed in there, and Tad did the yard work, and of course I took care of the children. Well, Marge Montgomery just loved Greg, so she will actually favor him over her other two children. Actually, Robin, the girl, turned out much prettier, but when she was young, she wasn't pretty. And I think Marge was beautiful. She was a debutante before the war. She was blonde and just beautiful girl. Her father was a very famous furniture maker. Really upper, class handmade furniture, and he had a shop in Pasadena, and their last name was start with a L. I used to remember all this. Anyway, so she was from a very, really fine family, and so was Mr. Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery is always dressed with a suit, or at least a sport jacket, and very proper. But Marge was just down to earth. So she'll take 3 kids to a drugstore. They used to have a little fountain. It's soda fountain. You could have ice cream, soda, sundae, and all that stuff. And she would get ice cream for the children. And she would actually take care of Greg for me. I never had to take care of Greg when Marge would take him out. So I probably cleaned the house, not too good, but I did. And I learned to cook from Marge. No, you can't leave us because, you're part of us. And anyway, she just went on and on. But no, Mr. Montgomery said, Mr. Kelly, that's their best friend, is a realtor, so he's going to find your house in Valley, and he will help you. So Mr. Kelly had a little house, and I can't remember how much, but that's in near Sherman Oaks, probably a little away from Sherman Oaks, a cheaper house. So when we put the bid on. I didn't even get to see the house. When they found out that it was a Japanese American, she didn't want to sell to us. So then we went back to Hollywood. Then we started to look for a house. And we found a little house on Barrington for $10,200 or something like that. It was a tiny house on Barrington, right across from Uni High. And my stepfather, he really, this is a cute story. My stepfather was a Christian, churchgoer, and of course I was. And he thought I was the only sane one in the whole household. He didn't like George. George didn't like him. And Nappy was lukewarm to him. But I was, because I came back from Japan and I didn't know any better, so I called him Pop Oishi. And so he thought I was okay. So he gave me $1,000 for down payment. And I think the rest my mom lent it to me. So we paid her back. So anyway, we raised Randy and Greg in this little house. And then came little Terry. And so Randy was probably like 3 taller. Greg was 5. So Terry must have been 2, 3, 5. And one day some salesman came to the door. In those days, we let the salesman come in the house. So I did that. He was a humongous, obese man. We had a love seat, rattan love seat in living room. He almost took the whole thing. So he was selling a freezer. And I said, I think we could afford it. And he said, you saved lots of money. Well, Greg gets up from their nap and he comes into the living room. And I knew what they were going to say. So I said, Greg, go outside right now. So he goes outside, real obediently. Then comes Randy. My kids, one by one, they'll get up and come into the room. And Randy came in and I said, Randy, go outside. And he goes, ooh, fat man. I said, Randy, get out of here. And Randy goes, ooh, fat man. Ooh, fat man. And then by then, Terry comes in behind him and he'll go, fat, fat. And I was really getting mad. I said, get out of here, guys. So Randy sits on this fat man's lap and he says, ooh, fat man. And he grab his cheek and kind of shake it. I was just mortified. I thought, this is it. So anyway, eventually I got rid of those two. And of course, Guy sold me the freezer. I had no choice. And we couldn't afford it, but one of those, you save money by buying side of beef. I forgot, $150. It would last you a whole year. So it's really cheap to do it this way. And the bread, you could buy day-old bread, put it in the freezer, and it's just like new fresh bread. So anyway, he talked me into it. Then Ted comes home, and of course I had to tell him the whole story. So for some reason, he was okay with it, but that's thanks to Randy. We didn't save money, but we had a funny story to tell.
So we're talking about what are the best times and the most difficult times.
Gosh, I had so many best times. Oh, I know. You guys gonna die. When the last one left the house, and we built a beautiful 4-bedroom house in West LA on Purdue. It had a big family room, separate living room, and nice kitchen. I really thought it was a perfect house, but we're the owner builder. I can't remember the exact date, but anyway, they're all gone. So Ted said, okay, we're gonna sell the house. I said, why? He said, because the kids might come back. I said, oh my gosh. So then I tell that to my family, Nana and all. And Saki said, oh, you can't sell the house. That's a perfect house. She said, anyway, she just loved it. She said, and I mean, it really was a perfect house. Every morning I come into the dining and I say, this is such a nice house. So now we're going to sell the house. And you think Ted wanted it? That's fine with me. So anyway, we sold it. We got into the smallest, probably like 800 square foot house from 1800 square foot house. We got settled down, and Tad and we were so happy. I thought if I say anything, God's gonna take him away. So I never said how happy I was, but we knew we were happy. Every night we would eat outside, and I cannot tell you how happy we were. So much later, we were in Japan visiting our friend Kawada-san. And she said also, so you moved from your big house? I said, yeah. I said, but when I moved in and every night we were eating outside and I hold his hand and I said, I just can't tell you. I was so scared. I was too happy. And Ted said, me too. He said, if I said we're happy, that God's going to take you away. I said, no. So I think we just, first time we had no children. Because Ted had Greg when he came back on war. I already had Greg, and I think in a way that was a mistake. I shouldn't have waited till he came back because he left me as a bride, come back and had mother, So, my attention of course goes to Greg, and I think it must have been very hard on Ted, but again hard on Kid, because he was the object of his almost like not enemy, but someone that came between them. But anyway, so at this house, on the little Kelton house, that was our love nest, and for years we just couldn't talk about it because I knew bad thing would happen if I said it. But just think, both of us said that. The Kawada-san always laughed. She said, you two are so amazing. You guys are so in love. Yeah. We were physically very in love, and spiritually too. And that was our best time.
So difficult times?
I think when he couldn't get a job and when he said he's going to hold up the bank, I think that was really scary because he's the type that would do it. So he went back to West LA College, which was very new, probably like first year then. So Greg saw the ad at the college, so he told Ted about it. So Ted went to interview, and he was really scared because he had a hernia. Lifting heavy things he developed. So he thought he won't get hired, but they hired him. He was one of the first ones, and it was a hard work, and he would just cuss up and down. He said, damn it, this is such a hard work. But he stuck it out, and we are so thankful that he retired on that. And so many Japanese gardeners started to work for school. One of them that we know, he started to work for UCLA, all thanks to Ted. He was a pioneer, really. So it was a good thing Greg did. And it just, even to this day, I receive his pension from school, and he's been gone for 13 years. So.
And you got an early retirement, so you could go traveling.
Mm-hmm. So probably it's not the most highlight, but still was neat that we could travel. We both retired in '83. I had to work a little bit longer because they won't let me go. So I said I have to quit because Ted's already retiring. So eventually I quit. Then we started to travel. We went to Japan, we went to Europe, and around the world. We bought a ticket that's around the world, so we get to go to New Zealand, to Australia, Philippines, Japan, and eventually even went to China in '84. It was just wonderful. So we did so many things, and we were never apart. We were apart only one time. He had to go to Auckland to help my Ted's sister. She needed someone to help drive truck, and so Ted flew in to help her. And he was so mad because all the kids were still sleeping. So he just really got mad at Shi-chan. Said, I'm here all the way from LA to help you, and what's going on? So eventually they woke up and they moved all the furniture out. And so then they, I guess, drove to Shi-chan's, in Carpinteria. And Shi-chan wanted him to stay overnight. He said, no, I have never been away from my wife after the war, so I'm going home. I'm going back. So he took a bus. Crazy guy. He got to Santa Monica at 3 in the morning. So he calls me from Shi-chan's and say, I'll be at Santa Monica bus stop at Greyhound around 3:30. I said, why don't you stay over? He said, I'm coming home. So he came home, and I remember going to pick him up at Santa Monica. It was kind of scary place, but we just.
Okay, what lessons have you learned from your relationship with Dad?
I just loved him in every way, even with his temper. I think to me he was so mannish. He was so dominant, and I think I liked that because my father was just too good, shall we say. So Mom was the probably alpha, and my father wasn't. So I think I like the male figure. Someone that's dominant. Even and he was really tough, but I really was crazy about him. So I know the kids suffered, but I was totally in love with him.
I think she's 94, but I might be wrong. But she gets along with everybody here, young and old, and we all welcome her. She is a wonderful addition to the mill, and I always say, if when I'm 94, that's exactly how I want to be, just like Lili. Get along with lots of people, and it's always progressive. She's a Democrat, for one thing. When I was designing the Kona Coffee Store, so they flew me to LA for several meetings, and that's when I met your mom. She was great. She said, come stay with me. So I did. And she took me to what's the museum she worked for? The Getty Museum. She was a docent there, and she took me around. We had a personal tour.
What qualities do you like in Lili?
Well, she reads a lot, but I admire. I think that keeps her young and her mind very sharp. All of the reading, I envy her for that. With a little feistiness and in her attitude, so a little playful with the fall. I think she's wonderful. We all love Lili.
I would describe Lili as just an amazing, inspirational, beautiful woman who constantly amazes me. She's ageless, and she is interested in everything, and she's just willing to jump into anything, and you can talk to her about any subject, and I think she's very open-minded, and I think she is interested in everything and interested in your perspective, and she adds something to everything that you want to talk to her about. Just an amazing person. She's intelligent, she's giving, she's kind, she's boundless energy, it seems to me. She's creative, she's open-minded, she's funny, she's a good storyteller, like Perry said. There's nothing I don't like about Lili. I met her here at the Donkey Mill, and I just fell in love with her, and she's sort of like a combination mother, grandmother, friend, girlfriend person. She has all good qualities. I literally can't think of a negative quality about her. She's an inspiration. She's truly an inspiration. Love you, Lili.